The first gunshot didn't scare her, but the second one made the widow Lysa Holt drop to her knees in the dust, clutching the small burlap sack that held everything she owned. The echo rolled across the dead, wind-bitten plains of Greystone Ridge, bouncing against the skeletal remains of abandoned mine shacks. The cold morning sun seemed to freeze in the sky. Not a single bird stirred. Lysa stayed still for a long second, her breath quivering, her face hidden behind strands of her wind-tangled chestnut hair. She didn't look back. She didn't need to. She already knew who fired the shots. Deputy Warren Billups. He'd been tailing her for 3 days. "Don't make me repeat myself, Widow Holt." His voice thundered across the flat earth. "Town don't want you back." Lysa rose slowly, legs trembling, eyes burning but dry. She had run out of tears weeks ago on the day her husband, Jonah Holt, had been buried in a grave she could barely afford. "Go home, Billups," she called over her shoulder, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "I'm leaving your town behind." That's what you wanted. A beat of silence. Then another gunshot, this time intentionally too close, splintered a wooden post beside her. "Good," Billups growled. "Keep walking." She didn't answer. She adjusted the strap of her bag on her sore shoulder and walked toward the rolling stretch of land that led to nowhere except a few ranches, rumored to be miles apart. She didn't know what lay ahead, only that she could not stay in Hollow Creek. After Jonah died, the town had turned cold. The people she baked bread for, cleaned barns for, and stitched shirts for all of them had shut their doors the moment the sheriff claimed Jonah still owed unpaid taxes. A widow with debt was a widow nobody wanted. For 2 months, she survived on tasks that paid pennies until there were no tasks left. Until she reached the point where hunger gnawed so deep she had no choice but to approach the one man whose ranch grew wheat enough to fill 3 towns. The one man everyone feared. The man who never came into town. The man whose past was a mystery. The man who lived in the stone ranch at Broken Mesa, Colt Barringer. Lysa had only heard whispers. Some said he killed his own brother in a shootout. Some said he was once a marshal who abandoned his badge after a tragedy. Others said he kept to himself because the world had already taken everything from him. She didn't know what was true. She only knew one thing. If she didn't find work soon, she would starve. Hours passed. Dirt caked her boots. Her stomach twisted painfully for want of food. Her breath became shallow from walking so many miles without water. When the wind slapped sand against her cheeks, she closed her eyes and let the misery wash over her. Don't fall. Don't stop. Don't break. It was the chant she had repeated to herself every day since Jonah died. The land stretched in endless brown and gold waves. The horizon shimmered. There, barely visible in the distance, stood a single structure. Large, tall, built from stone instead of wood. Broken Mesa Ranch. Her heart thumped painfully. She pressed forward, her legs wobbling. By late afternoon, the sun glared mercilessly overhead. Sweat stung her eyes. Hunger twisted inside her like barbed wire. Dust clung to her clothes and hair until she looked almost ghost-like. But she kept moving. For Jonah's memory. For the promise she whispered to him on his deathbed, "I'll live. I'll fight. I won't let life pass me by." By the time she reached the stone fence bordering the ranch, her body nearly collapsed from exhaustion. She blinked through the heat haze, barely able to make out the corral, the water trough, the fields heavy with ripening wheat. Her dry lips parted in awe. She had never seen so much abundance this far from town. She steadied herself against the fence, and that's when she saw him. A man standing near the barn, his broad, muscular frame half shadowed by the setting sun. Shirtless despite the cold wind, his skin bronzed, his long black hair tied back loosely, a leather strap crossing his chest, tribal beads glinting under the fading light. His hands gripped a wooden beam he seemed to be repairing. His movements were slow, powerful, deliberate. Colt Barringer. He looked nothing like the frightening stories whispered in town. He looked like a man carved out of grit and loss, a man who had fought the world for too long. Lysa opened her mouth to call out, but her voice failed her. Instead, her vision swayed. She stumbled. The fence blurred. Then everything went black. She awoke to the scent of smoke and cedar. Soft lamplight flickered against wooden walls. A blanket thick, warm, far nicer than anything she'd ever owned covered her. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then she heard the heavy footsteps. He appeared in the doorway, towering, silent, his long hair slightly damp as if he'd washed up after working outside. His chest was still bare except for the strap, and a few fresh scars crisscrossed his ribs. He held a metal cup in one hand. "You're awake," he said in a deep, low voice that rumbled like distant thunder. Lysa pushed herself up slowly, her head pounding. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to trespass. You didn't." He stepped closer, offering the cup. "Drink." She hesitated, then took it with trembling hands. The water touched her lips, cold and pure. She swallowed greedily, ashamed of the sound it made. He watched her with unreadable eyes. When she finished, she wiped her mouth. "Thank you. You collapsed outside my fence," he said simply. "Could have died out there. I was on my way to see you." She straightened her spine. "I came to ask for work." He raised a brow. "Work?" "Yes," she said, finding her courage. "Anything you need. I can mend, clean, cook, care for livestock. No." His answer was immediate. The single word felt like a whip against her skin. But she wasn't leaving without trying. She gripped the blanket tightly. "Please," she whispered. "I'll take any job. Even if it's hard. Even if it's dirty. I'm not afraid of labor." I said no. Her throat tightened. Anguish crept up her chest. She stood shakily. "Then I'll leave." She moved to gather her belongings, but her bag wasn't there. He watched her confusion and said, "It's drying by the fire. The rain last night soaked the ground you fell on." She looked at him. Really looked at him. His jaw was tense. His face unreadable. But there was something in his eyes, something stormy and secret, that made her heartbeat quicken. "Why? Why won't you hire me?" she asked softly. His voice lowered. "Because work ain't what you're really asking for." She stiffened. "I'm not begging for charity. I know." His gaze swept slowly over her worn boots, her frayed dress, her thin wrists. "You're asking to survive." She swallowed hard. "Yes." Silence fell between them, thick as the walls around them. Finally, he said, "You want to stay here? Then keep your pride." Her breath hitched. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over her. "But you won't work for me." "But if you stay," he said, his voice low and steady, "you'll have to be my wife." Her heart slammed painfully inside her chest. Her breath turned to ice. She stared at him speechless, stunned, caught between fear and disbelief. He didn't smile, didn't smirk, didn't look like a man proposing out of desire. He looked like a man making a decision he had been avoiding for years. A man who needed something from her, something unnamed. A wind gust howled outside, rattling the shutters. Inside the ranch house, all Lysa Holt heard was the pounding of her own heart. She whispered, "Why? Would you want a stranger for a wife?" His answer came slow, heavy, weighted with secrets. "Because, widow, it's the only way I can protect you." The wind moaned through the rafters as Colt Barringer's words settled over Lysa like a weight. She couldn't lift. "If you stay, you'll have to be my wife." Her heart hammered as she stared at him. The lamplight flickered across his bronzed skin, highlighting the scars on his ribs and shoulder scars that whispered of violence and battles he would never speak of. His long black hair, tied back loosely, brushed his jaw as he stood still as stone. She swallowed, voice trembling. "Colt, you don't even know me." "I know enough," he said quietly. "What could you possibly know?" She stepped forward, hands trembling. "You found me unconscious for 5 minutes, and suddenly you're asking marriage in exchange for shelter? That doesn't make sense." He didn't flinch. "It makes perfect sense to me, but not to me." The air between them felt charged, sharp as a drawn blade. Colt took a slow breath, his chest rising with a heaviness she didn't understand. "You want to survive," he murmured. "I want something else. Something only a wife can provide." Lysa stiffened. She wasn't naive. The world had taught her hard lessons. She lifted her chin. "If you're asking for a woman's companionship," he cut her off instantly. "No." His voice was firm, almost angry. "This ain't about that." She blinked. He dragged a hand through his hair and turned away, pacing once, twice, like a man wrestling something inside himself. Finally, he said, "Sit, it's a long story." She stayed standing. He eyed her, then exhaled deeply. "Suit yourself." Colt leaned against the wooden table, arms crossed, muscles tight. 3 years ago, a man came here," he began, "wearing a sheriff's badge. Said he needed a place to hide someone. A witness." Lysa frowned. "A witness?" "A woman," he said. "She knew something the wrong people didn't want known. She had nowhere else to go. And the sheriff, someone I used to ride with, trusted me." Lysa's breath caught. She remembered faint bits of rumor, Colt once being connected to the law. "Before disappearing, she stayed here," Colt continued, "for 2 months. I fed her, protected her, taught her how to shoot just in case." "What happened to her?" Lysa whispered. He looked away, jaw tightening. "She ran in the middle of the night. Left a note saying she didn't want me to risk my life for her." Lysa's chest tightened at the loneliness hiding in his tone. "She was being hunted," Colt said quietly. "And the kind of men who hunt don't forget easily." Her stomach dropped. "So they might still be looking for her?" His eyes locked on hers. "They're looking for anyone she ever crossed paths with, including me." The truth hit her like cold water. "You want a wife," she whispered. Because a married man draws less suspicion," Colt said. "Having a woman here makes it harder for anyone to accuse me of hiding fugitives." Lysa stared at him in disbelief. "That's your reason?" she demanded. "To use me as a shield?" "No." His eyes hardened. "I want a wife because a wife is protected by law. If you stay without a claim, anyone can come for you. Anyone can drag you back to Hollow Creek, or worse." Her throat closed. "You think I'm in danger?" "You were followed," Colt said simply. "The dust on your clothes, the fired rounds, the way you kept glancing over your shoulder when you approached my gate, I noticed everything." Lysa swallowed hard. Deputy Warren. Colt watched her reaction, jaw tensing. "Who was chasing you?" She hesitated. But lying felt pointless. "Deputy Warren Billups," she admitted. "He tried to keep me from leaving town." Colt's eyes didn't widen or flicker, but something cold slid across his expression. "Why?" he asked. Lysa clenched her fists. "When Jonah died, the sheriff claimed we owed taxes. I couldn't pay. Deputy Warren forced me out of my home. I tried to work odd jobs, but no one would hire me. They said I brought bad fortune. Then," her voice cracked, "when I went hungry, I begged someone for leftover bread. Warren accused me of stealing." The shame returned like a punch. Colt's voice dropped. "So you left town without giving Warren what he wanted?" Her stomach twisted. "What he wanted?" Colt clenched his jaw. Men like him don't push widows out of town unless they expect something first. She flinched at the accuracy. He told me. It would be easier for me if I kept close to him. Her voice trembled. But I refused? Colt's eyes darkened until they looked almost black. He turned away, shoulders rigid, fists tight. So you ran, he murmured. I walked, she whispered. I kept my head high. He faced her again. And he chased you? Yes. Silence thickened, heavy and foreboding. Colt said nothing for a long time. Just breathed, slow, controlled, like a man holding down a storm. Lysa, he finally said, listen carefully. She looked up. My ranch is one of the last places lawmen bother with. Too far, too barren, too quiet. But if Warren wants something from you and thinks you came here, he'll come. Her pulse skipped. And if the men looking for that woman I sheltered ever return, Colt added, they'll look for any weakness. A lone woman is a weakness. Her voice trembled. So your solution is marriage. It's the only thing that keeps you under my protection, he said. No lawman can drag a man's wife off his land without a warrant. And no outlaw would expect a married rancher to hide a fugitive. Lysa pressed shaky fingers to her lips. Marriage. Not for love. Not for wanting. Marriage as a shield made of ink and vows. Her heart ached with confusion. Colt, she whispered. I don't know you. And you don't know me. Marriage is, he stepped closer. Do you have another choice? His voice wasn't cruel. It was honest. Painfully honest. She trembled, tears stinging her eyes. No, she whispered. I don't. He exhaled softly, relief, not triumph. You wouldn't be my servant, he said. Or charity. You'd have a roof, food, safety. A say in this house. And I'd never ask anything from you you weren't willing to give. She searched his eyes, dark, tired, burdened, and saw truth there. He meant it, but still. It's too fast, she whispered. I know. You're a stranger. I know. I'm scared. That made him freeze. His voice softened, turning raw. So am I? That stunned her. Colt Barringer, the man of silence and scars afraid? Lysa, he said quietly, I ain't proposing love. Maybe that comes someday, maybe it doesn't. I'm asking for an agreement. You stay, you live. And I swear to protect you with everything I got. Her throat tightened painfully. And if I say no? Then I give you a horse, food, and water, Colt said gently. And you ride as far from here as you can before Warren finds you. Her legs weakened. Colt looked away. I don't want you to go, he admitted. Barely audible. His honesty shattered something inside her. Before she could answer, a door banged open, the back door, rattling hard. Colt spun, reaching instinctively for the gun on the table. A ranch hand? A wild animal? But then footsteps pounded across the porch. Heavy, determined. A voice shouted through the thick wooden door. Colt Barringer. Open up. I know she's in there. Lysa froze. Colt's jaw locked. Deputy Warren Billups. Her blood ran cold. Colt moved like lightning, placing himself between her and the door, his massive frame blocking her completely. Stay quiet, he whispered without looking back. Warren pounded again. Open this damn door or I'm coming through it. Colt didn't move. The house felt like it held its breath. Then, in a low voice that rumbled like a warning growl, Colt said, This land is mine, Warren, and the woman inside is under my protection. Warren snarled from outside. Oh yeah? And what gives you that right, Barringer? Colt's voice dropped, deadly calm. She's my wife. Lysa gasped. Warren went silent, then cursed loudly. You lying bastard. You think I'm going to believe? You will, Colt growled. Because the next time you step foot on my land, I'll bury you on it. Silence fell. Wind howled. For a long second. Lysa thought Warren might try the door, but then hoofbeats. Fading into the distance, Colt waited until the sound vanished completely. Then he finally turned toward her. His eyes were unreadable. His breath uneven. "You see?" he said quietly. "It's already begun." Lysa's legs shook so hard she nearly fell. Colt stepped closer, his voice low, steady, solemn. "Lysa Holt, do you want to survive?" Her lips parted. "Yes," she whispered, "then be my wife." Her heart pounded. Her fear roared. Her future trembled, and Lysa Holt gave the smallest nod. Colt exhaled slow, deep, almost painful. "Good," he said softly. "Stay tonight. Tomorrow morning, we make it real." The morning Lysa Holt became Colt Barringer's wife, the sky hung heavy with bruised clouds. As if the whole world was holding its breath, she stood in the doorway of the stone ranch house, fingers trembling on the frame, watching the horizon for any sign of returning danger. The porch boards creaked beneath Colt's boots as he stepped out behind her, pulling on his worn leather coat. His long black hair fell loose around his shoulders, damp from the basin wash. "You don't have to be afraid," he said softly, buckling the gun belt around his hips. "I'm not afraid," Lysa whispered automatically. Colt paused, looked at her, and shook his head once. "You're shaking." Lysa. Her lips parted in protest, but he was right. The fear lived beneath her ribs like a trapped bird. Not because she didn't trust Colt, but because she knew what Deputy Warren was capable of. A man with a badge and no conscience was more dangerous than any outlaw. Colt adjusted the strap across his chest and stepped closer. "If Warren shows his face today," Colt said, voice low and rough, "he won't be walking back." Lysa swallowed. "You won't kill him." "For me, I won't kill him unless he forces my hand," Colt corrected. "But he will not take you." His certainty steadied something inside her. Colt nodded toward the horse corral. "We'll head to the Parsons shack. He owes me a favor." "A favor?" "Saved his mule from a rattler bite last winter." She blinked. "That earns you a wedding?" Colt's lips twitched. Not a smile, exactly, but close. "It earns me not getting questioned." Her breath hitched. "So even the parson can't know?" "No one needs to know anything except that you're my wife. That's all." Her chest tightened. "A marriage built on necessity. Protection. Law, not love." Yet as Colt saddled the horses with practiced ease, she couldn't deny the strange warmth that twisted inside her. Not romantic warmth, more like the sense of being shielded by someone who didn't have to shield you, someone who chose to. "Mount up," Colt said as he handed her the reins. She tried to pull herself onto the horse, but her foot slipped, too weak from hunger and exhaustion. Before she could fall, Colt stepped behind her and lifted her with one powerful arm, setting her onto the saddle as if she weighed nothing. Her breath stuttered. He didn't say anything, didn't linger, didn't treat the moment like it meant anything, but her heart thudded painfully anyway. The ride to the small Parsons shack took nearly 40 minutes along cracked earth and crooked fence lines. The wind whipped at Lysa's hair, carrying the scent of dust and sage. Colt rode ahead slightly, scanning the horizon with the vigilance of a man who didn't trust the world, which she realized he had every right not, till when they finally dismounted outside the Parsons' tiny structure, a one-room building with a bell missing its rope. The elderly man stepped out, squinting against the daylight. "Colt Barringer?" he called. "Didn't expect to see you till the next thunderstorm." Colt tipped his chin. "Morning, Parson Briggs." Briggs peered at Lysa. "And who's this young woman?" Colt's hand brushed Lysa's back, just a guiding gesture. Nothing intimate, but the touch steadied her more than she expected. "She's Lysa Holt," Colt said. "And she's here to marry me." The parson's eyebrows shot upward. "Marry? You? Colt's jaw tightened faintly. Yeah. The parson stared a moment longer, then nodded slowly. Well then, come inside before the weather turns. Inside, the shack smelled of old books, cedar smoke, and rain damp. Sunlight streamed through warped window glass. Colt removed his coat, revealing the scars along his arm, scars that made the parson's eyes widen. You've seen some battles, son. Briggs muttered. Colt said nothing. Lysa wrung her hands, palms clammy. Colt glanced at her once, and something like apology flickered across his expression. Let's get this done, he told Briggs. The parson took up his Bible, stood before them, and began to read in a gravelly voice. As he spoke vows meant to bind souls and hearts. Lysa's throat tightened. This was real. This was happening. A ceremony meant for love and devotion was being used as a shield. But as she looked at Colt, standing tall, steady, protective, she felt no regret. Only fear and a strange hope she couldn't name. Do you, Colt Barringer, take this woman? I do, Colt said, voice firm. Her breath hitched. And you, Lysa Holt? Do you take this man? Her heart thud. Dead. Colt single quotes, gaze locked on hers. Not demanding. Not forcing. Just waiting. She whispered, I do. The parson closed the book. Then by the power vested in me by the state and the Lord Almighty, I now pronounce you husband and wife. The words settled heavily in the small room. Lysa exhaled. Shakily. Colt didn't touch her. Didn't reach for her hand. Just nodded once in respect, almost like a promise. You're safe here. But the moment was cut short by the distant echo of hoofbeats. Colt's head snapped toward the window. The parson stiffened. Lysa froze. Stay back, Colt murmured as he stepped outside. Lysa rushed to the doorway, peering past him. Riding toward them. Fast. Angry was Deputy Warren Billups. Her stomach dropped. Warren pulled his horse to a halt so violently the animal reared, snorting and pawing at the dirt. His face was red with rage. You son of a... He pointed at Colt. You think you can hide her? Colt stood tall, unmoving. I'm not hiding anyone. Warren snarled. She's wanted for stealing. She's my wife. Colt cut in, voice like gun metal. Warren's face twisted. I'll see proof. You'll see nothing on my land. Colt stepped forward, hand resting on his gun. You rode out of your jurisdiction. You're trespassing. I don't give a damn, Warren barked. She belongs in Hollow Creek. Lysa stepped outside before Colt could stop her. I don't belong anywhere you say, she said, voice trembling but strong. I'm married now. You have no right. You're not married. Warren spat. This was a trick. Colt's voice dropped to a lethal quiet. She said the words. Warren whipped his glare to Colt. You think marriage stops me? She stole. She took nothing, Colt growled. Warren's lip curled. You always were a stubborn bastard. Heard rumors about you. Heard you hid someone before. Maybe you're hiding something again. Maybe I should bring the sheriff and search this ranch until I find what you're protecting. Colt's entire body went tense. The parson stepped forward, voice shaky. Deputy, the marriage is legal. I witnessed it. If you take her now, you break the sanctity of the vow and the law. Warren glared between Colt and Lysa, fury burning in his eyes. This isn't over, he hissed. I'll be back with a warrant or without one. Then he yanked his horse around and thundered. Away. Dust swallowed him. The silence afterward was suffocating. Lysa's legs shook, and her breath came uneven. Colt gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Come, we're leaving. They rode back in a tense quiet, Colt constantly scanning the horizon. By the time they reached the ranch, a storm had begun to roll in, dark clouds churning, lightning cracking in the distance. Inside the house, Lysa finally let out a shaky breath. Colt hung his coat. then turned to her. "You held your ground," he said quietly. "Most people can't stand eye to eye with Warren." "I did it because I had to," she whispered. "Because I had no choice." Colt stepped closer, voice low. "You had a choice today." She shook her head. "Not really." Colt's gaze softened slightly, something rare, almost fragile. "You're stronger than you think, Lysa." She swallowed. "Colt, are you sure Warren will bring the sheriff?" "Yes, and when he does?" Colt's jaw tightened. "Then we fight." Lightning lit the window. The storm howled outside. "Why are you risking all this for me?" she whispered. He didn't answer immediately. Finally he said, voice raw, "Because someone once risked everything for me, and I failed to save her. I'm not letting it happen again." Her heart clenched. Before she could respond, the wind slammed against the shutters, shaking the entire house. A storm raged outside, and another storm, far more dangerous, gathered on the horizon of their lives. The morning rose slowly over Broken Mesa, a thin silver line cutting across the cold valley. Lysa stood on the porch wrapped in Colt's blanket, her hands tight around a tin mug of bitter Cowboy coffee. She hadn't slept. Every creak of wood, every whisper of wind outside had made her sit upright in the bed, listening in fear. Colt hadn't slept either. He spent the entire night sitting on the porch steps with his rifle across his thighs, unmoving, eyes fixed toward the dark ridge as though he could smell danger brewing there. Lysa studied him now in the pale dawn. Colt Barringer wasn't carved like other men. He was built out of storms and scars. Even in the quiet morning light, he carried a tension in his shoulders that made her heart ache. "Colt," she whispered. "About last night." "Thank you." He didn't look at her at first. His gaze stayed fixed on the ridge. Only when Briscoe, the old ranch dog, lifted his head and gave a low rumble of warning did Colt finally turn. "I told you," he muttered, "I don't leave folks behind." "And everyone in Hollow Creek left me," she said softly. Colt's dark eyes flicked to hers. "You ain't in Hollow Creek anymore." She almost smiled, then Briscoe's growl deepened. Colt stood so fast the porch board shook. "Inside." Lysa blinked. "What is it?" "Inside, Lysa. Now." She didn't argue. She ran into the cabin, heart thudding, peeking through the window as Colt stepped into the open yard, rifle in hand. And then she saw it. Dust rising over the ridge. Riders first 3, then 7, then more. A whole line of mounted men coming down toward the valley. At their lead sat Deputy Warren Billups. He looked worse than the night before, face swollen, eyes blazing with the kind of rage that came from ugly pride. He rode down the slope like he owned the valley. Colt waited at the fence, silent, still, ready. Warren pulled his horse to a stop so close Colt could have reached out and grabbed the bridle. His grin was crooked and full of spite. "Well, look at that," Warren drawled. "Broken Mesa ain't as empty as folks said." Colt lifted the rifle slightly, not threatening, just clear. "You brought a lot of men, Deputy." "You abandoned this place," Warren said. "Sheriff signed papers. County's taking the ranch." Colt's jaw flexed. "That's a bold lie." Warren shrugged. "True or not, I'm the one standing here with 12 men." Lysa could see Colt's temper simmering beneath his calm expression. "Where's the widow?" Warren asked suddenly, leaning in his saddle. "Lysa Holt? She in there hiding?" Colt stepped forward, blocking Warren's view of the cabin. "She's a guest." "And she ain't your concern." "Oh, she's very much my concern." Warren's voice turned slick. "She caused trouble in town. I tried talking sense into her. She ran." "Talking?" Colt echoed, eyes darkening. "Some women need a firm hand." Warren smirked. "A man like you ought to know that." Colt lifted the rifle half an inch higher. "I ain't letting you near her." Warren chuckled. This ain't about her anymore, Barringer. It's about you. You pop back into town after disappearing for months, stir up questions about this dead ranch, then hide a problematic woman under your roof. She did nothing wrong. She ran from an officer. Warren tapped his badge. That's enough of a charge for me. Colt's voice became cold steel. You're not tacking her. Then I'll take the ranch. Warren pulled a folded document from his saddlebag and tossed it at Colt's boots. Colt picked it up and scanned it, brows tightening. The paper was real. Lysa's breath caught in her throat. Warren had the sheriff in his pocket. "Men," Warren shouted suddenly. "Start with the barn. Tear it down." Colt didn't shout back. He didn't move. He spoke in a low, deadly voice that carried across the valley. "Any man touches my father's barn. Don't finish the day." The riders shifted nervously. Warren scoffed. "He ain't nobody, boys." "Do it." One man hesitated. "Deputy." "He's Colt Barringer." "I said do IT." That was the moment Colt moved. He stepped forward lightning fast, grabbed Warren's saddle horn with one hand, and ripped the deputy clean off his horse. Warren hit the dirt hard, air blasting from his lungs. Before anyone could blink, Colt cocked his rifle and aimed straight at Warren's face. "You walk off my land," Colt said, voice low and deadly, "and you tell the sheriff to talk to me himself, not hide behind you." Warren's men stared at Colt, no one brave enough to draw. Warren struggled to his feet, shamed, humiliated. "Mount up," he growled at his men. "But sir, mount up." One by one, they obeyed. Not because they respected Warren, because they feared Colt Barringer more. When the last rider turned toward the ridge, Warren stepped close enough that Colt could feel the heat of his breath. "You think you won today?" he hissed. Colt didn't blink. Warren's jaw tightened. "I'll be back. With the sheriff. With a court order. With real men who ain't afraid of your ghost stories." He spat on the ground and limped off, grabbing his horse's reins and hauling himself back into the saddle. Colt watched them leave until the last hoofbeat faded. Only then did Lysa run from the cabin. "Colt, are you hurt?" she breathed. Colt didn't answer immediately. His chest rose and fell slowly, like a storm he was forcing back down. His fists were tight. His voice was gravel. "He wants this land. He'll come again." Lysa reached for his arm. "What do we do?" He looked at her, and something dark and determined settled in his expression. "We prepare." "For what?" she whispered. "For war." The rest of the day Colt moved with grim purpose. He checked the fences, cleaned out the barn, carried old crates into the cellar. Lysa followed him everywhere, helping where she could, refusing to be sent back inside. "You done this before," she said quietly as he locked a trunk of ammunition. Colt didn't deny it. "Warren ain't dumb. He'll come back. Maybe tonight." "Then I stay," Lysa said. "I'm not running again." Colt looked at her so long she felt her breath catch. "You're stubborn," he murmured. "You like it." He almost smiled. They were on the porch when Briscoe suddenly barked toward the northern ridge. Colt's face changed instantly. Another dust cloud was rising. Bigger than before. Closer. Men. Many more men. Lysa grabbed Colt's arm. "Is it?" "Yes," he said, voice calm but heavy. "Warren." They both stepped forward as the thunder of hooves rolled across Broken Mesa like a coming storm. This time Warren wasn't leading a handful of riders. This time, he was bringing a force big enough to end everything. Lysa felt Colt tense beside her, his rifle rising slowly as the riders came into view. The war for Broken Mesa had begun.